Joe, do you want to give us a squad update firstly, please?
Just one addition to the original squad that we've had for the past couple of weeks. Kirsty McLean's back in, so she's managed to get through this week of training, so she's available for some minutes tomorrow, and that meant that one needs to drop out, so we've unfortunately had to leave one out of the squad, but it's going to happen a few more times over the next coming weeks as well, with people coming back from injury. So it's a competitive squad. It's the first time we've had a few less injuries, but just the one change for this weekend.
Two leanest defences in the league. What sort of game are you expecting?
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. It's first against second, so we're expecting a really tough game. I think I've liked how they've been playing this year. They've looked strong. They've looked competitive. You can tell they've tried to up their levels this year from previous years. So expecting a tough game. I like what Leroy's been doing over there with what she's been trying to build. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for us. It's going to be another tough test, but it's one that we're relishing to be playing in, especially at Ibrox.
Well, just on that top of the table clash, but how much more significance does it take given that the game is at Ibrox?
Yeah, I think it's important for us. I said previously when we played Celtic there that we're not scared to play these games there. I think it's important that these games are put on a showpiece, and we do make sure that we're the ones that are pushing the league and games in this league. We're not scared to play these games there. We want fans to come to these games. We want to put on a showpiece. You want to be playing at the best grounds, and it's important for the players. Important for the players to feel it, feel the atmosphere, feel the big occasions and the big games. Because even going down to Boreham Wood at Arsenal, you feel what it feels like there to play in front of 3,500, 4,000 fans when it's packed to the rafters, and that feels very different to 4,000 fans in a big stadium. So I think it's important to know the difference in the levels and noise levels, but again, the feeling, the experience of playing in a big stadium. We've played there previously, and played well. So I think it's important that these games get to play there and playing on the best pitches and on TV and getting good crowds, and it's really important for the game.
Are you hopeful that, given it's the international break for the men's team, that fans will come out and say, I'll give this a try? Absolutely.
That's a big thing for us when we're trying to plan these games, that it's important that the men aren't playing and it's an international break. Hopefully that they will come down and watch, because we were fearful when we played Celtic at Broadwood that the men were playing Lyon that night. And it was a bit of a disappointment for us, but we needed to for TV reasons. But the fans turnout were brilliant. I think we had nearly 2,000 there that night, which felt like a good amount in Broadwood. So we're hopeful, and we're hoping that fans do turn up, because that could have been one of those nights where the away fans could have been more than the home fans, and that was a little bit of a worry for me. But on the night, our fans turned up in the hundreds, so we made it worthwhile, and it was a good turnout for our fans. And I'm just hoping that with it being at Ibrox and the men's not having a game with the international break, that we can definitely turn up and support our girls.
Do you players train at Ibrox before playing there or not?
No. We don't get to train there, but the pitches are brilliant here. We've been on the grass pitches here all week, which is something that not many teams would potentially get to do. So the pitches are outstanding out there, and we've been able to get the feel of the grass this week.
In the last couple of seasons, the games between the top three have all been very competitive. Draws, last minute goals. In terms of the concentration levels of your players, it's an easy thing to say, but what do you do to coach that into people so that they are on the ball on the 90th minute and into extra time? Yeah,
it's not an easy fix. It's something that's got to be worked on continuously. And we know it's not something that you can click your fingers and be better at and just say, you need to concentrate more. We've got to make sure we're putting these players in certain situations. It's always tough to do it in training, because it's a very different feel than when you're actually playing against opponents that you aren't in control of, and moments that you aren't in control of, refereeing decisions that you aren't in control of. All these factors come into play, so it's something that we've got to just remember. We're trying to learn from game in, game out. There'll be times when we do it well, and there'll be times when we manage it well. There'll be times when we need to do it better. Obviously we know we need to do it better from our previous encounter midweek, but we show improvements all the time. I said after the Celtic game on the Thursday, we went into Motherwell and we controlled the game. It might not have been one of the best performances that we'd seen, but the biggest thing that was missing from the Celtic game was that control, the control element over the full game, and that's something that I saw an improvement in. Motherwell didn't have a chance on goal. They didn't even have a shot, didn't register a shot on target, one cross in the whole game. So, you look when they've played against Celtic and when they played against City, they've created chances. I thought they were very unlucky against City last time when Motherwell played them. And we're managing to limit teams. So we've got to make sure that we can do it consistently and do it well against our rivals, because that's the next test, and tomorrow will be a good test for that.
And in terms of your team selection, one of the things I've noticed is you haven't been afraid to blood the younger players. Mm-hmm. Do you think that in Scotland we tend to be a little too regimented with the systems that, under 18s, under 17, that, sometimes you've got to use people when they're ready?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can see that from a lot of my team selection over the last 12 months or so. I thought it was really important to give Mia McCauley some experience of the Hampden games last year, and she turned up in the semi-final and did excellently. Even leaving her on for 90 minutes, I thought it was really important. I could have easily brought her off and went 2-0 up and gone, no, come on, come and take a seat, but I left her on. I wanted her to suffer in those moments. And they're the little things that is really important for these young players. They've got to learn by doing. They've got a really good environment with good teammates to learn on the training pitch, but the biggest thing for me is for them to learn by doing. I got trusted at a very young age to be played in the first team, so I know that feeling and I know what it can give you, and these players are good enough. They wouldn't be there if they weren't good enough. So these young players that we've got and putting out on the pitch, I've got every faith in them, because they're showing very good qualities and very good traits at an early age, and the quicker I can get those experiences into them, the better, and the better it's going to be for these players in the long term.
How excited are you to have Kirsty back? It seems like, well, basically more or less the whole year.
Yeah.
You've not had her. How exciting is that?
Yeah, she's an important player for us. She's one of those players that if her teammates see her there in training, there's an instant lift. And I think she's one of those, if opponents see her on the pitch, they're a bit like, oof, she's tough to play against. She's an important part for us and how we play, and dictates rhythm and tempo of our game. I think you can see that. It's been great having her back in training. She's just fitted straight back in. There's no worries about her at all. But she's an important player for us and how we play, and I think it's important for us to get her back in as soon as possible.
How do you get her back to the levels that she was at? Because she really was at an unbelievable level, and that injury had such an impact on the team last season. Mm-hmm. So obviously you maybe have to take your time, you'll know. Yeah. But how do you get her back to where you want her to be?
Yeah, it's just taking our time with her. She's still a young player. There'll still be moments where I need to hold her back and say, we've got to look after you a little bit more here. She might be feeling ready to go, but that's for me to manage her personally. And I think, we've got a squad. We're missing her and Chelsea, which is a big part of our midfield and how we play, like we said. But we've done really well to learn how to play without them, which is important for the team and important for the rest of the group and for them as well. No player's untouchable in this team. It doesn't just automatically get given a shirt, but having them available and just bringing the competitive levels up again and making everybody else go, oof, there's another one back here again where I've got to perform and I've got to keep performing. And I think that just keeps that squad level high. But yeah, she's an important player for us. I've just got to manage her, and hopefully we'll keep her fit for the rest of the season, because I think she'll be important for us going into the latter part.
I was going to ask you about Chelsea. She's obviously got her brace off now. Yeah. She kind of showed that off during the week. She was happy to get that off. Where is she in terms of her return? I know I ask you all the time, but it's such a big question for the fans, because like you said, she's such a key player. Yeah, it's important. We know how important Chelsea is for us. She's only just literally got the brace off, so we're waiting to see. At the moment, these next couple of weeks are going to be vital for her, because it's a short amount of time just from getting the brace off. She's got to adapt to having that brace off. She's had it on for 6 weeks now, which is a good amount of time. So the one thing about Chelsea is she's a great healer. I think last time when she did her ankle, she was meant to be out for 3 months, and I think she halved that time. So there's no pressure on her at all. We need to make sure she gets right, but I won't be surprised if Chelsea knocks a few weeks off, and that's one of those I don't want to give a date on it, because it could be a little bit longer, it could be shorter, and I've not been given definitive times yet.
because it's so early. I will definitely know in a couple of weeks' time though.
Last one from me, Joe. What I wanted to ask you was, you've obviously rotated quite a bit.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense in your mind where you'll start to maybe rigidly trying to have a core selection? Like, is there a point where you think, right now I need to get my first 11 on, and we need to have a wee bit of that similarity for a few weeks? Consistency, that's the word.
Yeah.
And do you have that in your mind, and when you'll maybe start to do that?
Yeah, and I think that's important for the players to feel that sometimes. But we need some consistent performers. And you do see that when we get the consistent performers, they're on there week in, week out, and they're performing really, really well. The beauty of our squad is, like, we see that you get a couple of injuries and it can really hurt you, especially coming into the latter parts of the season. And I'm keen to make sure that all of our players can perform. And there's got to be moments where I trust my players to go and play in certain games. We go and get them that experience that they need to go and play. You know, you look at Maycroft that we used against Dundee. That was a really important 45 minutes for her, just to be able to see the levels and the difference in the levels. But that's probably something that I didn't do too early in the league last year, because we had a lot of injuries, and I think I had 4 or 5 players on the bench, and all of my kids were playing week in, week out. But it's important now that I think you'll potentially start to see a bit more consistency when we get that consistency in the squad. You know, when we've got everybody back in, fighting for positions and fighting for places, that you'll see then the competitive levels come up, and people really performing well week in, week out. I think it's important that they train well for that as well. The players and our opponents will dictate that a lot of the time, and who's in form. So hopefully the players can perform really well week in, week out, and they keep that shirt for them.
Just in terms of the games against the big three, yourself, Celtic and City, there's so much weight behind them at the moment, so much expectation, you know, behind them from the fans. The players seem to be so decisive. Do you change your message, and how's the psychology with the players as well, especially when you do go to Ibrox? It almost doubles up, you know, the weight of the fixture. Yeah,
no, we try not to change too much. I think it's important that we keep our messages consistent, because, you know, we spoke about after the Celtic game how that mental battle happened in the game, and how it swayed and how it shifted, and how we could have got that back. You know, because we were pretty consistent in our messages before it, that, you know, we kind of know what to expect from the opponent. It's about bringing ourselves and not allowing that to change no matter what happens in the game. And we came too far away from what we believed in and what we normally do really well in those games. So it's kind of doubling down in those moments and going, no, we really do believe in what we're doing here. This does really work, you know, and look at what we've done previously against these teams and these opponents. When we've come out on top, look at what we've done really well. So I try to double down a little bit more on us and what we can do well to beat our opponents, not dwell too much on the opponents. And it's just about getting that balance right of knowing how much information I need to give them and how much confidence I need to give them. And that's something that we're still working towards, because we're still so early in the season. So, you know, we haven't played City yet, so it's going to be a good battle.
Yeah, just finally, you say it's still so early in the season. Is it too early for you to be looking at this as a chance to extend your lead at the top, start to create a gap between yourselves and the other teams?
Yeah, I think so. I think... No, I think it's really early. As I say, I feel like we play each other 1,000 times. So, you know, there's always that battle of one here, one there. And I think there'll be points dropped and gained elsewhere this year, with the strength of the other teams that are picking up. So we've already seen it, you know, with Hibs picking up points. So I think it's important that, you know, you don't get too caught up. We need to make sure that we handle what's in front of us, and not think, you know, if we get 3 points here, we go 5 points clear here and things like that. We need to make sure we're doing our work and doing our job, because you get too caught up in other results and other things happening, you can take your eye off. But I do think it's a little bit early for that, but we also know the importance of these games. And these are the ones that, you know, your rivals, everyone wants to win anyway. So it does give you a little bit extra, but yeah, I think it's going to be one of those seasons that's a little bit more here and there than what it has been previously.